want to share my Dr. Pepper since you forgot your drink? Okay.
Okay.
I was trying to be generous. You know, it's a virtue. But we're not talking about virtues.
No, we're talking about the 7 deadly sins.
Got it. Welcome, disciples, to Everyday Hope.
Your daily inspiration from the Word of God.
And today we're talking about
The 7 deadly sins! And today, specifically, envy. The definition of envy is a feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, quality, or luck.
why not give the verb as well?
Desire to have a quality, possession, or other desirable attributes belonging to someone else.
Dang. Envy, huh? Well, let's talk about envy, but before we get into envy too much, let's take a quick talk of the overview of the 7 deadly sins and where they came from. Now, are the 7 deadly sins specifically listed in the Bible in that context of 7 deadly sins? No, they're not. Now, though these sins are talked about in the Bible, they're not talked about in a way that they are, in some way, the worst of sins. But the 7 deadly sins date back to the late 6th century when Pope Gregory the Great reduced the worst sins a man can make into the 7 ones that are listed as greed, pride, sloth, wrath, gluttony, lust, and envy. The 7 deadly sins. So, they're also known as the capital vices or cardinal sins. Catholic churches use this a lot more than Christians do, but I still believe it's something that we need to be knowledgeable of as Christians. And I think there's a good teaching because I believe that almost all sins can go back to the 7 deadly sins, or they all have an originating point there for the most part. But with the 7 deadly sins comes what we'll be talking about next week, and that's the 7 virtues. So the opposite of lust is chastity, so it goes on. And we'll talk about today's, the opposite of envy is kindness. So think about that as we talk about envy. So where do I think the 7 deadly sins came from? When Pope, was it Alexander the Great? What did I say it was? Sorry guys. Gregory the Great. Yeah. Gregory the Great. Where did it come from? Well, to me, when I did my first study of the Bible, you know, what jumped out at me as being closely related to 7 deadly sins is Proverbs 6. Feel free to read the whole chapter on your own. I'm just going to read a tidbit here from verse 16 going forward, and it's subtitled, What the Lord Hates. The Lord hates 6 things. In fact, 7 are detestable to him. Arrogant eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that plots wicked schemes, feet eager to run to evil, a lying witness who gives false testimony, and one who stirs up trouble among his brothers. Brothers being, mankind. And then it goes on in Proverbs 6 to talk about warnings against adultery. Previous to that, it talked about warnings against being a malicious man, warnings against being a lazy man, and warnings of being a financially irresponsible man. So, I could definitely see a lot of resemblance to the 7 deadly sins in this, and as well as other passages in the Bible that really kind of focus on pride. Pride is a huge problem that we have, and you see a lot of pride getting in the way when we talk about the story of Moses and Pharaoh. I mean, it's throughout the Bible, so if you're looking for a good starting point with that, though, Proverbs 6, great starting point to really relate to the 7 deadly sins and things that God is against. But we're talking about envy, and envy is something that we've talked about in our church quite a bit because I personally believe that it's a bigger problem in our generation than it's ever been in any previous generations or in history. And I realize that's a pretty bold statement to make, that we have the biggest problem with it, but you have to look at our lives a little bit. We're more connected than we've ever been. I mean, compared to even 20 years ago, we are so involved in each other's lives because of social networking and because of technology. 20 years ago, you wouldn't know what your friend's friend was up to. You would never have that knowledge unless your friend brought it up or you talked to them directly. But now you see a shared post or somebody tagged, or you're friends with your friends' 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 friends, because that's the way it works. because you have this many mutual friends, and so it goes on. And so we're so involved with each other's lives, we're constantly looking at what others have, and we're not necessarily doing it for that intent of having Facebook and Instagram, but a lot of times we are stalking people. You know that all of you, including myself, are guilty of looking up a profile or two and just being like, wonder how this person's doing. And maybe sometimes they're doing really well and you become envious of that person. Now, it's something we have to be very careful with social networking. You know, there's a responsibility with it. And if you're one of those people who really struggles with jealousy, you really struggle with being envious of others, I'd recommend getting off of social media. It's not that important. We've taken several breaks from social media. You know, I've been off it for years at a time. She's been off it for years at a time. And I never felt like I was missing out in those times. You know, it's a lot harder to reach out to market, to reach out for the church. I will say that because it's a great tool to reach out to people, to connect with people. But at the same point in time, it definitely brought a lot of relief to not feel the need to have to keep up, to not have to post the prettiest pictures of your kids, or to have the house or the car and those things.
Vacation.
Yeah, ways to have vacation. But I'll read you guys a tidbit from one of our sermons we had recently. And it talks about how we look to others and compare it to our own lives. And we want to say it's not fair, you know, because we look at some people who have that nice house, that nice car, the perfect family, great jobs, lots of money and security. And we think, how is that fair, you know? Like, they don't even go to church. I pray every day. I go to church. I volunteer. God, yeah, I tithe my money. Why am I not blessed more than they are? Why would they get more than I do? How does that make sense, God? You're going to give them more when they make fun of you. Maybe they're an atheist even. Maybe they're completely against you and spread a bad message. Or they just don't know God. Like, how does that make sense, right? Well, this is the answer I found. And I'll be honest with you guys. This doesn't originate with me. But listen carefully, because this is an answer I spent a long time looking for, because so many people really close to me struggled with this. So listen carefully. Sometimes the devil allows people to live a life free of trouble because he doesn't want them turning to God. Their sin is like a jail cell, and their life is a comfortable place, so it doesn't seem to be a reason to leave. Then one day, the door closes and locks forever, and it's too late. They die with their sin. That's a hard truth to realize and to listen to, you know? And so, me and Alyssa a long time ago decided to be thankful for our hardships and to be thankful for always just having enough. And I feel like that's a huge blessing now, because I know a lot of people, and you know, just because I'm a pastor doesn't mean all my friends are Christians. By no means are they. And I have a lot of friends who refuse to turn to God, and they think they've done everything in their lives in their own power. That they worked hard to get to where they are. They worked hard to get their car and their house. And I'm not saying they put effort to get those things. But what I am saying is those things were God's in the first place. There's nothing here on earth that didn't come from the creation hand of God. We're just borrowing all this stuff. And I don't want my treasures to be stored up on earth anyway, where moths and thieves can get to them. I want my treasures to be stored up in heaven. So never do I think we do these things on our own accord. If we're blessed immensely, it's because God's blessed us, or because we're trapped in our sin. So I go on to say, let me get to my notes here. So then one day the door closes and it's too late, and they end up dying in their sin. So that's terrible, right? The devil keeps them just comfortable enough not to turn to God. You don't want to be one of those people who never has a hardship and never has a reason to be at wit's end to turn to God. The majority of the people I know who have had true conversions are people who have been at rock bottom and realize that they can't go through life on their own power alone, that they need God. And, you know, one of the things I want to talk about too is that the truth of envy is it can be rephrased in a sense to say it's simply the art of counting another person's blessings instead of your own. mean, hard truth. I realize that, but sometimes we need that. And if you're too busy counting somebody else's blessings instead of being thankful for your own, you'll lose those too. And you don't want that to happen, because whereas you're looking at their perfect pictures that they got and they paid for from a photographer, or their great family vacation, you're missing out on all the time you have at home with your family, with your loved ones. Or maybe you're not married yet and you're jealous of that. Well, you're missing that great time to spend with your family, mom, dad, brothers, sisters, friends. There's always something. You have a lot of free time on your hands still? Great. Volunteer at the church. Man, I wish I could spend more time volunteering at the church, or free time with a book, you know? There's whatever you have, somebody else would be thankful for it, and that's the truth. Mm-hmm. So count your blessings instead of counting somebody else's. No joy has ever come from blowing out somebody else's candle.
I think, too, you got to remember, if you don't put your life in complete faith in His hands, He's not going to bless you with everything that you are wanting in life. You have to trust Him. You can't, you see your friends getting married and having babies, and you are not yet. You can't just, expect it and say, why me? He's going to fulfill you and your life, and He has a plan for you. But you have to trust Him with your life and believe in Him to take care of you.
Exactly. And a great example is Job. So if you guys ever want to read that story, that's the man that trusted God and had everything taken away from him. And that's what we did our sermon on. We talked about envy. So what it comes down to is, this isn't, I really hope I'm not surprising you guys, we're all adults here, but life isn't fair. And it's not going to be, and God didn't promise it would be. God promised it would be difficult. He promised that we wouldn't be able to understand everything. But even though life isn't fair, God is always faithful. And that's something that we can rely on. That when we get to heaven, all will be just, all will be fair, and everything will be perfect. There'll be no sorrow and no tears. So, do your treasures on earth really matter that much? No. Focus on your relationships. Focus on what you have in your loved ones. And be joyful. Count those blessings. Show kindness to those who have less than you. And be happy for those that have more than you. That's what God calls us to do. Not to look for what we don't have. Mm-hmm. So, I really hope this is enlightening and you guys enjoyed this. Please like, share, comment, so that more people can hear the message. And as always, never lose hope.
You don't know what tomorrow may bring.
We'll see you guys tomorrow.